لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين. The recitation of the third juz. There's 2 rukus left, inshallah, finish third juz. As we said, inshallah, first 4 days will be a bit long. Depending on the dinner on Saturday, maybe we'll keep that day shorter and make Sunday a bit longer. After that, all of the days will be one juz. So today, alhamdulillah, we completed Surah Al-Baqarah and we began Surah Al-Imran. We finished about half of Surah Al-Imran. So Surah Al-Baqarah, as we said, the first half of the surah, what we discussed yesterday, it speaks about those people who did not have shukr. Those people who rejected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounty of making them His chosen people, and instead they became the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath came on. They were in such a position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounty was on them. They were favored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the Anbiya, Prophet, Nabi, Rasul, all of these went to them. Hundreds of Anbiya went to them. Yet they managed to somehow ruin this. Why? Because they didn't have shukr. Now in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 177, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا. This ayah is known as Abwab al-Bir, the doors of righteousness. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions the core things in deen. So the question I have for people here, what are the 5 branches of deen? Not the 5 pillars of Islam, but what are the 5 branches of deen? Does anybody know? The 5 branches of deen. Number 1 is aqa'id. Number 2 is ibadat. So our beliefs, and there are ibadat. And with our ibadat, after that we have our mu'amalat, our dealings with people. Business dealings. Then we have mu'asharat. Mu'asharat are our social conduct. And the last thing we have is akhlaqiyat, our character. All of these things are mentioned in this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's not righteousness that you turn your face to the east or to the west. But what is righteousness? Here we have the aqa'id. We believe in Allah. We believe in the day of judgment. We believe in the angels, the books, the prophets. These are our aqa'id. Number 2, our mu'asharat. وَآتَى الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَالسَّائِلِينَ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ. And we give wealth despite loving it. And who do we give it to? Our close relatives, orphans, poor people, travelers, and those who ask for it. Then وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. Then the ibadat are mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings mu'asharat before ibadat. Why? Because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives us when we make mistakes on our ibadah, when we don't fulfill Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rights. But when it comes to the rights of other people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes us to task. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't forgive us until that person forgives us that we wrong. So the mu'asharat are mentioned first. Then Allah mentions the ibadat. وَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. Praying salah, giving zakah. وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَاهَدُوا. And now the mu'amalat are mentioned, transactions. We fulfill promises when they make them. And lastly, akhlaq, tazkiyah, spirituality. وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. They're patient, meaning they're steadfast on obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Steadfast in abstaining from sin. Steadfast in trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the time of difficulty. فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. In times of pain, in times of sickness. وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. In times of war. At all of these times, these people are patient. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. These are the people who are truthful. And these are the people who are the muttaqun. Who are the muttaqun? The people that were mentioned at the beginning of the surah. That Surah Baqarah and the Quran is guidance for them. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And these are the people who are the muttaqun. The rest of the surah, or the rest of the second juz, it mentions specific aspects to Abwab al-Bir. It goes into quite a bit of detail. And then we come to ayah number 202. No, 208. This ayah is a critical ayah in the surah. And this ayah is a turning point between the attitude of the Bani Israel and the attitude of the Muslims. What should a Muslim's attitude be? We're grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us this deen. So, Ya ayyuhalladheena amanu dukhulu fi silmi kaffa. O believers, enter into Islam. How? Half-heartedly? Do we enter into Islam, just following the things that are convenient for us? No. Fi silmi kaffa. Completely, 100%. We need to enter into Islam. It can't be that, okay, when it comes to our ibadat, when it comes to salat, namaz, zakat, roza, som, we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to our weddings, when it comes to our social functions, when it comes to our business dealings, we do whatever we want, we do whatever is convenient, we do whatever the culture tells us to do, whether or not that is in contrast to Islam. I'll give you an example. If you look at the weddings that we have, especially in the basic culture, do you think Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would come to any of these weddings? I could take qasam that he would. All the filth that's going on in these weddings. We're Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from being Hindu. Why are we playing Hindu songs at our wedding? Why is every single type of rule, norm, Islamic norm that we have being violated? These are things that is for your generation to end. Right? It's for your generation. You have children growing up. Your parents might be upset with you. Your grandparents might be upset with you. But deen is deen. Right? لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There's no obeying the creation when it comes to disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to disobeying the Creator. So it's up to you. You guys all have children now. I remember when most of the people here didn't have children. So Zuhair Bhai didn't have children. Now mashallah, he has a beautiful daughter. Faris Bhai didn't have children. Faris Bhai has Yunus Bhai has children. Mashallah, Mujtaba Bhai has kids. I remember a time when none of us had kids. I also didn't have kids. Now it's up to us to make the right choice. It's up to us to make the dini environment for our children. It's up to us to allow them to enter into Islam completely. And actually, it's easier for you guys because a lot of times you don't have the family pressure if your parents are back home on a day-to-day basis. You can raise them however you want. But there will be times when there's a push from the family. You have to do what's right. You have to do what's taught. And at those times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards a person immensely. Because if one person abandons in your family afterwards this bad custom, you'll get the reward. If many people abandon it, you'll get the reward. The hadith is that a person who revives a sunnah in the time of fitna, what happens? They get the reward in some hadith, 1 shaheed. In some narrations, the reward of 100 shaheed. If you revive a sunnah in the time of difficulty. This is what sabr is. This is what deen is. It's not when things are convenient I follow it. It's when it's difficult. When people are saying this and that, but I am able to stand up and I'm going to say, no, this is what my deen says, this is the truth, and I'll follow it. It's very important. And we're on the topic of weddings, let me talk to you. The youth here, they talk to us. So many issues out there, right? So many issues that are going on. If we make marriages difficult, if we make it expensive, if we make it such that you have to be done with med school in order to get married, you have to be making $100,000 to get married, how will marriages occur? Zina will become cheap. The more expensive that a wedding becomes, zina will become that cheap. And that's what's happening. Now, it's so easy. A person can be sitting here. I've seen it before. People like in i'tikaf, on the nights, odd nights, people are praying here, somebody's in the back talking to a girl on their phone. I've seen it. This is what happens. We're making it easy a lot of times. We're proliferating that environment. Why? Because of all of these obstacles to marriage. Yes, at the same time, we're not saying that you just give your daughter to whoever. That person needs to have some potential. That person needs to be making the right choices. They need to be on the right path. But again, it's something that we have to think about for this coming generation. Okay, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, enter into Islam completely. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, and don't follow shaitan's footsteps. Why do we not follow shaitan's footsteps? And why does Allah say footsteps rather than shaitan's path? Because shaitan has many different ways. As long as you're not on Siratul Mustaqim, shaitan doesn't care. Shaitan doesn't care if you go right, if you go left, if you go up, if you go down. All shaitan wants you to do is not be on Siratul Mustaqim. Because all other roads, they lead to where? They lead to Jahannam. And shaitan, he wants you to go there. فَإِن زَلَلْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْكُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. Then, a few few ayahs later, Allah says, Sal Bani Israel. Ask the Bani Israel. Sal Bani Israel. Oh believers, enter into Islam completely. Otherwise, Sal Bani Israel kam atinahum min ayatin bayyinah. Ask the Bani Israel how many of our signs, clear signs came to them. How many clear signs we gave to them. وَمَن يُبَدِّلْ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ. Whoever changes the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the blessing? Deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the blessing of deen. وَمَن يُبَدِّلْ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُ. After it comes to them, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment is strict. And we see what happened with the Bani Israel. What happened? They went from being Allah's favorite people. أنعمت عليكم. I bless you. We make dua. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. These people, Allah said, أنعمت عليكم. I have this in'am, I have this blessing on you. But what happened? They went to be مغضوب عليهم. Those upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath is. So what causes people to go astray? What causes people not to enter into Islam completely? زُيِّنَ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the life of this dunya beautified for the people of kufr. And they mock the believers. They make fun of them. They call them, extremists. They say Molvi. They say this. They say that. They say loser. Whatever they want to say. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. But the people who have, again, this word, taqwa. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا. Those who have taqwa. فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Will be above them on the day of judgment. And a lot of times they say that the reason they make fun, they say, how will you survive in this world? How will you survive in this world if you live as a Muslim? Allah says, وَاللَّهُ يَرْزُقُ مَن يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides to whoever He wants without any account. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the doors to His treasure and doesn't count. He says, take whatever you want and I'll give you more than you can imagine, more than you need. Now, if you want to enter to Islam completely, know that there will be challenges. Allah says, أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةِ. Do you think that you'll enter Jannah? وَلَمَّا يَأْتِكُمْ مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ خَلَوْا مِن قَبْلِكُمْ. When the like of that which happened, which afflicted those who came before you, hasn't happened to you, what happened to them? مَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ وَزُلْزِلُوا. They were hit with pain, with sickness, with all sorts of tribulations. وَزُلْزِلُوا. And Allah says, we shook them. حَتَّى يَقُولَ الرَّسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. Until even the messenger and those with him, they didn't say Allah's help, is it coming? They said, when is it coming? How much more can we take? Matan, that's how much difficulty that they're put in. Allah says, أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His help is near. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help has come to you. Now you've gone through those difficult times. Now you have a little bit of money. So what should you do? If you want to be able to withstand difficulties, you need to have first and foremost strong family units. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. They ask, who should we spend on? قُلْ مَا أَنْفَقْتُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ فَلِلْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. That whatever khayr, the word for money that's used in the Quran many a times is khayr, which is good. Being rich isn't bad. It's a good thing. It can be a good thing if you use it for good things. Money in and of itself is not a negative thing. If a person uses it properly, it can lead a person to Jannah. Of the Ashara Mubashara, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, extremely wealthy individuals. Usman radiallahu ta'ala. Abu Bakr was, but then he gave it all this. But Usman radiallahu anh, they're very wealthy people. But they used it to go to Jannah. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they ask where we should spend. قُلْ مَا أَنْفَقْتُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ فَلِلْوَالِدَيْنِ. Number one, spend on your parents. وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ, and close relatives. وَالْيَتَامَى, and on orphans. وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and then after that to everybody else. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now, okay, times are good, but times are not always going to be good. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that fighting has been prescribed on them, but they don't like it. Allah says this is the principle in life. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. It might be that you dislike a thing, but it's good for you. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ. And you may love a thing, but that thing is bad for you. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows best. So whatever situation we're in, we do sabr, and we do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He guides us. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about war. Can we fight our war, unrestricted warfare, do whatever we want, kill man, woman, child, old people? No. Why? Because we are people who submitted to Islam. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الشَّهْرِ الْحَرَامِ قِتَالٍ فِيهِ. They ask about these sacred months, fighting in them, meaning that there's some rules to even war. Okay, now alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help has come. Victory has come again. Now we have money. We want to spend. We spend on our close relatives. We spend on our parents. We spend on the poor. We have money. So what can we spend on? Can we have entertainment? يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask about alcohol and gambling. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. Allah says, tell them that there's great benefit. Allah says that there's great sin and there's some benefit for mankind in this. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ. There's huge sin. وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. And there's some benefit in these things. Alcohol and gambling. So if you see some study that comes out and says, oh, drinking 1 glass of red wine a day will do this and this for your heart, sure. We're not negating that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. The sin in those things is greater than the benefit. This is a principle that we can use in our life. Whenever you want to evaluate something that has some harm and some benefit, see what is greater and what is dominant. Is it the sin in that? Is it the harms in that thing? Or is it the benefit of this? I'll give an example. I have a brother. You know him. So he had a smartphone. What he did was, that I'm wasting too much time, he switched it out for a flip phone. He had it, that worked for him. For him, that smartphone, I seen him do it. I said, well, let me try to do that as well. I tried to do it. For me, the benefit in it was more than not having it. This is like a headache. Someone goes, I called you, I texted you, you never responded. Right? So for me, it was better to have it. So for people, it might vary. There's some things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this thing is good or bad. But for other things that are just, in our day-to-day life, what do we have to do? We have to evaluate, is it a positive for me or a negative for me? In the net, right? Then, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. Okay, we can't spend on gambling, we can't spend on alcohol. What should we spend on? وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, whatever extra you have, spend it. You can spend it on different things, you can spend it on good things. Then, they ask about orphans. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْيَتَامَى. Because there's poor people in our society, we have some leftover money. What do we do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, treating them is good. There are principles even in dealing with orphans. Just because you're taking care of someone doesn't mean that you owe them. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِصْلَاحٌ لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ وَإِن تُخَالِطُوهُمْ فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ. Say that treat them well and guard their wealth. And if you mix their wealth with your wealth, fine. If you need it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges that. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْمُفْسِدَ مِنَ الْمُصْلِحِ. But if you're doing it to take advantage of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have an eye on that. Then, okay, you're taking care of other people's children. Now you want to have children of your own. So can you marry whoever you want? No. وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ. Allah puts laws for this as well. You can't marry kuffar. Specifically, those people who are like not people of the book. Meaning atheists, meaning Hindus, meaning Buddhists. We can't marry those people. However, you have to look in this day and age as well. Just because a person is white or black or Hispanic doesn't necessarily mean that they're Christian or not, right? Because I saw some studies saying over 50% of the country, they say they're spiritual, but they don't believe in any religion. Muslim men are only, and not women, men are only allowed to marry Jews and Christians. And also, the fuqaha, they have specified that it's makruh tahrimi to marry a non-Muslim Christian Jew in a non-Muslim country. In a Muslim country, no problem. In a non-Muslim country, it's makruh tahrimi. Why? Because how will your children hold on to their deen? Very, very difficult. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he told Huzaifa radiallahu and a few other sahabis, he wrote them letters saying, you have non-Muslim wives, divorce them. They wrote back saying, did we do anything haram? Umar radiallahu said, no, you didn't do anything haram, but I see harm to the deen coming to this. So leave them. So that's it. The next thing is, okay, now you're married. Can you have relations whenever? Can you do whatever you want? No. وَيَسَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ. They ask about women's menstrual cycles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid down laws about that. Okay, khair, mashallah, you're married. now sometimes marriages, they don't work out, unfortunately. But even when we're separating, we're still united in deen, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He lays down principles. الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان. Talaq is 2 times, meaning you have 2 chances. When you say it the 3rd time, then you get halal. Now that we're here, let me explain this masala to you. Because we always hear this. 3 talaq, 1 talaq, 3 equals 1, 1 equals 3. 3 equals 3, 1 equals 1, but there's detail to it. There's detail to it. The thing is, first of all, we have to be very careful. When you get married, right, you'll have the best times of your life, you'll have the worst times of your life. Every person gets upset with their spouse. Everyone. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got upset with his spouse. Some people that come and say that, I've been married 2 years, I've never fought with my wife. You might be a jinn or something like that. Because even Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they fought. He argued with his wives, right? That happens. But when we argue, there's a way of conducting ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what do we read at the time of the nikah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ayah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah. All those who fear Allah, all those who believe, fear Allah. Wa qulu qawlan sadida. Speak nobly, speak straight. It's a difficult thing, but if you do that, yuslih lakum a'malakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will set your deeds aright. Wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum. And He'll forgive your sins. Wa man yuti'i Allah wa rasulahu faqad faza fawzan 'azima. Whoever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they achieved a tremendous success. This is the masala. If you say the word talaq to your wife, or I divorce you, it counts as 1 time. There's 2 different types of talaq. There's talaq raj'i, there's talaq ba'in. Talaq raj'i means you use crystal clear words for divorce. That means I divorce you, talaq, etc. When you say this, 1 divorce occurs, what happens then is immediately the woman, she enters her iddah period. In this iddah period, without her choice, the husband can decide to take her back. Verbally or by initiating relations, all of that she'll come back to. The marriage is intact, okay? But there's a limit to this. You could do this 1 time, you could take her back. You could do this 2 times, you could take her back. After the 3rd time, halala comes. And I'll explain what is halala and why halala comes as well. Okay? The other type of talaq is talaq ba'in. In talaq ba'in, a person uses ambiguous words, meaning words that have double meaning. For example, go to your parents' house. That could mean 2 things. You can go to your parents' house to give me some space. Go to your parents' house can also mean this marriage is over. Go, you're not part of it. If the person intends talaq at those times, it's between them and Allah. Allah knows. Talaq ba'in has occurred. What talaq ba'in means is that the husband can't take the wife back unilaterally. She still has to stay in iddah in his house. However, they have to do a new nikah if they want to get back together. Okay? Here's the masala. Now, that doesn't prevent them from getting remarried again. They can get married again. And he could give another talaq ba'in, or he could give talaq raj'i, but that's strike 2, no matter what you do. And when you get to the 3rd one, whether it's talaq ba'in, whether it's talaq raj'i, you get to halal. Okay? What is halal? When a man divorces his wife a 3rd time, and it's in the Quran, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ. If you divorce a 3rd time, فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ. I say 3rd time because the last I said الطلاق مرة. فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ. She is not halal for you من بعد حتى تنكح زوجا غيره. After that, until she marries another person. The hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam clarifies that not only does she have to get married, like nikah, she has to consummate that marriage, meaning the new husband has to sleep with her. I said, what is this? This is difficult. The reason that this is there, and this Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam upheld it, so that marriage is not made a joke. We've seen in this time and in the old times, women who are trapped in toxic marriages. When it becomes like a joke. I'll read one text I got. Just not from this community, but in mission. I'll read it. Find it. So you'll see that this is the thing that people that's happening. I was married in 2005. From then until recently, my husband has declared talaq on me over 120 times. He has said they don't count because he was angry. The last 2 times were the last day of Ramadan in 2020. I prayed istikhara the night before. The next day he declared it. During this period, he also separated his bed from me for 1 year. So from fall of 2019 to 2020, we had no contact. And then she said, when I asked a scholar online if we were married over a year ago, he said we weren't. I took this information to him and he scoffed and he said it's not true. And she goes on. Maybe the husband probably has a side of the story too. What I'm saying is there are people like this where it just becomes a joke. Person says talaq, 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 talaq so many times. Now the woman doesn't know, is she married, is she not married? The husband says, I'm angry, it doesn't count. Who says talaq when they're happy? No idiot says it when they're happy, right? You only say it when you're angry. The only time it doesn't count in anger, I'll mention this too. The only time it doesn't count when it's in anger is if the person has reached a stage of insanity. Meaning, they write in the books of faith, the person can't tell the sky from the earth. The person can't tell man from woman. And it does happen to some people. But it's very rare. If a person knows what they're saying, if they're in control of it, not control, but they know what they're saying, and they give talaq, it counts. Okay? Now, let's go to 3 talaq. If a person says talaq in one sentence, meaning, I divorce you 3 times, there is no way out from that. It counts as 3. If a person says talaq, 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 they get mad. They say it 3 times. Okay? The default is it should count as 3. However, we will see what was the person's intention in saying that. Sometimes a person, they didn't intend 3 talaq there. What they did is when you're angry, you say, like you tell your child, I told you. How many times do I need to tell you? How many times do I need to tell you? You repeat what you said, right? Not meaning a new statement, just emphasizing what you said. So you look at that person's intention. Another thing is, in the society, there's in jahalat. People, they think you have to say it 3 times for it to count 1 time. All of those things are considered in this case. But I ask all of you, don't ever put yourself in that position. Because then what happens is, people, they go, there's one person, they ask, one scholar, they asked him, he said, I think it's a divorce, he called me. He said, what do you think? I said, this is a textbook case of divorce. Textbook, like you could pull out a book, textbook case of divorce. So I said divorce, other scholars said divorce, several others said, or maybe I don't know how many others, because it was from a different city. They called me divorce. Finally, he found somebody that said, it's okay, it doesn't count, you were angry. So what happens? The woman is never going to be satisfied. The woman is always going to think that I'm in, zina and this and that. The husband also is in shirk. So don't put yourself in that situation. This is something to keep in mind, okay? But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on and He says, وَالْوَالِدَاتِ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ. Even if there is a divorce, that doesn't mean that you hate and you malign one another. Rather, there is decorum between the spouses. وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ. Why? Because there is a need to take care of the children. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks about the roles of breastfeeding. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says all of this in the middle of speaking about divorce. Allah brings one ayah. حَافِظُوا عَلَى الصَّلَوَاتِ وَالصَّلَاةِ الْوُسْطَى. Be mindful of your salahs. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention salah in the middle? When you're going through stress, when you're going through marital issues. That's probably the worst issues that somebody can go through. At that time, your mind might not be here and there. Allah said, even at those times, don't neglect your salah. Allah mentions all of this and then He brings something else. He says, what? أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَهُمْ أُلُوفٌ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ. Allah begins to speak about jihad. Why? Because when Muslims follow all of these laws that we spoke about today, then Muslims will be united. They'll be united and they'll be able to face whatever difficulty comes their way from non-Muslims. So then the surah, the para, it ends speaking about Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam and Jalut. When Muslims are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what happens? No matter how difficult it is, come min fi'atin qalilatin ghalabat fi'atan kathiratan bi'idhnillah. How many small armies have defeated big armies? Why? By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with the sabirin. They made the dua, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِقْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا. Allah, pour upon us patience. وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا. And make firm our feet. وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. And help us against the kuffar. فَهَزَمُوهُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Allah said, we gave them victory. وَقَتَلَ دَاوُودُ جَالُوتَ. Dawud alayhi salam killed Jalut. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him kingdom and wisdom. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him what he wanted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends this para is ending with that. After this, Allah mentions some Anbiya. We'll start tomorrow inshallah with Ayatul Kursi and we'll discuss Surah Ali Imran. This is Friday night, so we have time inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.